Yo, what's cracking, my Zigified fam? We are back with a new video once again. Today I'm gonna show you how to make beats like X with the Boot Up by Yeat, and I'm gonna guess you know what the song sounds like if you're watching this video, but if you don't, look it up and then come back. I can't play it in this video, obviously. Yeah, look it up and then come back and you'll see what we're trying to do here. Yeah, the beat is insane, so I'm trying to make something similar. Okay, so obviously in the song, the main like element is like the EDM part. I'm not sure if that's actually like what genre it is, but I see people calling it all sorts of things. They call it geometry dash type beat, YouTube intro type beat, basically anything. But so I already made it here because it's way easier to explain it if I already made it, and I'll just go layer by layer explaining how to do it. So this is in D minor and 143 BPM. So obviously first is the bass line, and I'll play it first and explain how I came to this conclusion of using this. Okay, so first of all, you probably notice that's like offset. It would be here, but it's here, and this is because a kick would hit here, so it creates like a fire bounce of the kick and then the bass hitting, so they don't hit at the same time and clash. Okay, so I opened a piano real quick to explain why I chose this chord progression. So you might think this is like a classic one, which it is. So it's like a classic chord progression, but to make it more like a darker melody, you can move this note up here, right below this one. So there's like tension. So it's darker, but there is one last thing that you saw I did, which is right before this hit, I made one up here, and then at the end here. So it looks like this, and it sounds like this. So yeah, that's how I got the chord progression I made. So then obviously, as I talked about before, I got the kick, which is hitting just consistently, nothing too much. By the way, I'll put the sounds down in the description because I know y'all are gonna ask, especially with some of the other sounds in this beat. So I'll just put all the drum sounds down there if I remember, and if I don't remember, leave a comment. Okay, next up I use this saw wave preset in Serum to just build out this more complicated bass line where they're just alternating up and down octaves. It is a classic. You see, it's just alternating up and down for the entire progression I made. And as you can see, I did the same thing with these notes up here. So this is what this sounds like. So yeah, this is really where you get the bounce from. Now I got this preset called Simple Saw in Nexus, and it is exactly what it sounds like. And I built a repetitive melody with it that changes on the fourth bar, but it's just repetitive. That's what you want to go for. And yeah, this is something cool to do too. Like, I guess little stutters, and you make the notes shorter, so like they cut off. It's also helpful to use the notes like right next to each other, and that creates tension, and the tension is relieved over here. And I use the same preset to create like a top line melody. So yeah, at the same time repetitive, but a bit more dynamic than the first one. It's also worth noting that I put a flanger on this. You could probably tell it gave it a bit of like a wider feel. Now the next thing, this is not essential, but I added a clap to give it like bounce. But you may notice there were effects on it, and this is what it sounds like without the effects. So yeah, the effects are important, so I'll go over those now. First of all, I added wider and made it more wide. Obviously, that's what the plugin does. I added a phaser. Phases it. I don't really know what it does, you know what I mean? And I also boosted the high end because it wasn't crispy enough. Okay, next up, I added a simple hat for bounce again, and I panned it, every one of them different slightly, just for more bounce. You don't need to do this either, but I feel like I wanted the bounce, so I did. And the final element is this crash. This like just ties it all together. Like, this is kind of essential. So I put one on the downbeat, and then at the end, this is like the essential part during the 8th bar. You gotta have it hitting like I think this is every beat you gotta have it hitting. So I think that's it for our EDM part. So this is what it sounds like all together. yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I think now it's time to get into the trap part. I guess, I don't know if that's the right thing to call it. The trap drums part. Okay, so this part is extremely simple. First, I laid out an 808 that follows the root notes that we made earlier, the bass line. Nothing too crazy, but we don't want to go insanely crazy. Next, I added a clap, just a classic bounce like this. Next, I added hi-hat pattern, and I did like the classic yeat type pattern, which is like copy this over and over again. And finally, it wouldn't be a yeat beat without the bell. So I added a bell that also follows the root notes, but it's a bit like kind of random and bouncy. Like it doesn't hit perfectly on the downbeat. So here's the entire trap section together. Okay, so now that we have the two like separate elements, we gotta figure out how to combine them together. Spoiler alert, I already did that. Ignoring the automation clips, everything in pink is the EDM stuff, and everything in black is the trap stuff. Okay, so I think the easiest thing to explain first is how to have the EDM stuff playing underneath the trap drums. Like the trap stuff is the main focus, but the EDM stuff is still there in the background. So how I did this is that I routed every EDM element to a one channel. So you see I call it EDM part, and this is an EQ. I don't know why it says shaper box, it's an EQ. Every time the drums are hitting, I have an EQ active that looks like this, where I cut out like a lot of the highs, like make it muffled, but don't forget to cut out the lows as well, because if you don't do that, then the 808 won't be able to hit. So this is what it looks like. There's also another thing to note. I also took out the EDM kick during this section because like it would kind of bleed through this EQ and it's not really desirable. Okay, but before we get too ahead of ourselves here, I'll go over the intro real quick, which is right here, obviously. So I started off with a halftime, and that is the first automation clip. And the second automation clip is this filter. So obviously it starts out with some of the EDM elements, but the first 4 bars has the trap clap and a hi-hat, and then the next 4 bars has the kick. So this is what the intro sounds like. Yep, and then it drops straight into the trap section. Now after the trap section, we drop into part of the EDM section, but I don't have the second lead playing at this point, or the hi-hat. So before I explain this section, I'll just play it. So as you can see, it's pretty much the normal EDM section we made, except this one part. I have the 808 hitting. I made a custom pattern, and during this part I activated that EQ we made earlier, and I also took out the kick and the bass from up here. So you kind of want to do that where you randomly incorporate like the trap section into the EDM part. He does it in the original song. You could do it however you actually want to do it, but this is how I did it. So then after this, we have another EDM section with the lead playing, and I do the same exact thing where I incorporate part of the trap section into the EDM section. But this time before it hits, I have a tape stop here, and this automation clip triggers the tape stop. But this is what this part sounds like. So as you can see, yeah, I'm continuing to mix in the trap with the EDM just kind of randomly. But then after this, we drop straight back into pretty much the first pattern that I made over here. And we have a bridge, which is pretty much the same thing as the intro. And then we just rinse and repeat. Except over here, I got a few extra things. So you may notice these 2 automation clips that weren't used in the first half. These are like random stutter effects. Because in the original song, he like kind of tape stopped it a lot, but I thought that was a bit much, so I just kind of did stuff like this. Just like random bounce variations, and I use shaper box for this, and this preset is Cool Beat 1. And over here I added the hi-hat we made earlier, and also along with this other pattern down here, and the one that's activating right now is called Full Beat Break 2. yeah, I kind of like the bounce that that gives. And then we drop back into the trap section again, and then an outro. So wow, that was pretty long-winded, but I think we explained everything. I don't think I left anything unturned here. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Thanks for watching. I think I'll put the beat at the end of the video. Maybe if the video is short enough, I'll put the entire beat, but if not, I'll put a portion of the beat and I'll put the rest on SoundCloud, and I'll leave the link. And remember, the drums are down in the description. So yeah, thanks for watching.